Welcome, everybody. My name's David Wood. I'm a friend and advisor to the OmniFuturists. You can read on the OmniFuturist website this description about what they do. The OmniFuturists study the impact of near-term future events and plan how to effectively counter the downsides. One of the projects of the OmniFuturists is looking at one such near-term future event, which may indeed have downsides. And this book that you can see illustrated here, its cover, Future Visions, has a variety of different perspectives on that topic. The event in question, you can see in the subtitle, is the Economic Singularity, and more fully, approaching the economic singularity, the stresses and strains that society may well experience, and what are our options for handling them. And I say options with a plural. The title is Future Visions, again with plural. The group's name, OmniFuturists, implies a diversity of approaches. And you will find many chapters in this book that bring different insights into what is a complicated and multi-sided question. In my own chapter, which starts off the book, I look at 6 possible responses to the economic singularity, and I point out what I see as big limitations with 5 of these responses, and I explore the 6th one in more detail. But before I come to that, let me say a few more things about myself. Professionally, I spent 25 years at the heart of relatively early days of the mobile computing and smartphone industries. Since 2008, I've spent 16 years chairing what has become, by some measures, the world's largest meetup, which focuses on foresight, namely the London Futurists. And I have often described myself recently as the author or co-author of 12 books about the future. Well, now, instead of 12, I need to say 13, because as you can see, my name is on the cover of this book, because my essay in it is the opening chapter that sets the context for a fascinating number of responses and other perspectives by authors that you can see listed on this page. Okay, so what is the economic singularity? I'll illustrate it via this diagram that I'll build up in stages. On the horizontal axis, I've got time, which is measured roughly in decades or even centuries. The vertical axis is the degree of skills that humans can apply in doing paid work. And this blue line shows human skills for work. As you can see, over time, humans have indeed been able to do more and more types of work. And that increase in our capability is for a number of reasons. We have understood science more fully, and as a result, that has equipped us with many kinds of tools. We have also found better ways to share our current best insights via better education. And as more people have been thinking about the work that we are doing, more people have come up with important innovations. And we have restructured how we do work. We have organized ourselves better. And then last, or actually I will present it as first on this list, we have made technology more capable, which has, again, enhanced our work activities. And technology changes our work activities in at least 3 important ways. First, technology augments us. It enhances us. It effectively makes our muscles stronger. It makes our thinking clearer. It makes our communications better than our native senses, and so on. Second, in a more subtle way, the more technology we employ in our work, the more profits or more revenues or more income is generated, which makes the economy as a whole healthier, boosting demand for often new kinds of services, new kinds of work, new kinds of jobs. So many of the job titles that people have nowadays would not have made sense to our grandparents because they are associated with new kinds of technologies, providing services that were hardly imagined in earlier, more frugal days. The third way that technology changes jobs is it often can do jobs without human involvement or with little human involvement. Technology can do work that humans used to do. So let me draw that curve onto this chart. I'll draw it like this. That is the skills that AI, artificial intelligence, or other kinds of robots, hardware and software can do. And to start off with, these tools were mainly used for what we may call the Ds, the dull, dirty, dangerous, or dark work. And humans were happy with that on the whole because it meant we didn't need to do such unpleasant work. And we could concentrate instead on using our brains. More recently, AI and robots have done a lot of the R's, the rational work, the repetitive work, the robotic work, we might call it, the work that requires a lot of rigorous thinking, that can increasingly be done by robots as well. And we humans often still say that's okay because the really interesting work, the cool jobs, the creative jobs, the compassionate jobs, the jobs involving caring, all the C words, they are currently beyond the capabilities of AI or robots. But for how long? Here we are positioned roughly in chronological terms in the middle of this picture, and by some extrapolations, we see robots and AI improving faster than humans are improving. And that is, if we look forward to that crossover point, that is the potential economic singularity. And after that point, most humans will no longer be able to earn a living by working, because whatever services we might offer to the workforce, it will be available more cheaply, more efficiently, with a higher quality by robots of one sort or another. And yes, as the technology boosts the economy, there will be new jobs. There will be robot repair engineers, but most of these new jobs will go to robots as well. So it will be robots that are engineering the repairs of robots and so on. In part because robots and AI will be able to learn faster than we humans. And interestingly, as soon as one robot learns, that knowledge can be shared instantaneously with all other robots via the cloud, the Internet of Robots, if you like. So that is the possibility. Such a forecast has been made before with regard not to humans, but to horses by, I may call him another London futurist. He was a futurist or an artist with an eye to future possibilities who worked in London roughly 200 years ago, George Cruikshank. This picture is available in the British Library. And you can see horses looking with some mixture of emotions at newfangled technology, one of the earliest steam-powered carriages. And the horses are asking themselves, what's going on? A coach without horses? Triple exclamation mark. Cruikshank provided in the margins of this picture other pictures. A fiery steed, something that might look like a horse, but had smoke bellowing out of its tail. So what was the implications? Well, there are two philosophers in this picture, the two dogs, and one of them is saying to the other, I think we shall soon have meat cheap enough. In other words, there would be no work for horses, they would be displaced by technology, and perhaps they would be turned into meat. The prediction, therefore, in 1829, there would be fewer jobs for horses, a kind of economic singularity for horses. And that turned out to be a terrible prediction because for many decades subsequently, working horses increased in population, faster indeed than the human population. People have studied this at some length. This is a book, Horses at Work, in America mainly. And the figures there show that in America, horse population went from 4.3 million to 27.5 million. Why was that? Some analysis from the 19th century. Yes, technology did some tasks, such as railroads replaced horses for certain types of long-distance journey. But these railroads, and similarly the ocean liners, they needed to be fed with goods and passengers by horses. Horses were needed to take people to the railway stations, to take goods to the railway stations. The more trains there were and the more steamships there were, the more requirement for these horses. People can neither load nor discharge their cargo without horses. Now, some futurists said it's only a matter of time before technology can work for horses in other contexts as well. But critics had lots of counters. Critics who thought horses were really special said there are many things that steam engines can never do. They are too prone to emit sparks and cause fires. They have a terrible, acrid black smoke. They are very noisy, and because they're so heavy, they will crack the street pavements. There's no way horses can ever be displaced by technology. And for a long time, that seemed correct. If we look at this famous picture taken by William Zerber on Easter morning in 1903 in New York City, if you look closely, you'll see horses everywhere, except for one weird horseless carriage, very much in the minority, because they were expensive, they were unreliable, they were smelly, and so forth. But step forward just 10 years. Do you notice the difference? Not only is the resolution of the second photograph much higher, you will struggle to see a horse anywhere. So if you look long enough, I'm told there's a horse there. So a rapid change because people like Henry Ford figured out ways to solve the limitations that had previously prevented horseless carriages, or as we now call them, motor cars, from spreading more widely. So what did happen to the population of horses? People have studied this at length. We saw there was a rise in the end of the 19th century. By some authors, peak horse was 1915, and then horses were displaced rather rapidly from all the occupations which previously could use some of their horse skills. The population declined, the wages that each horse could get, in effect, declined. Only 8 million in 1950, and by 1960, only 3 million. It's gone up a little bit since then because we have got uses for horses in various entertainment, but the range of roles of horses reached the limits of their adaptability. And the question is, okay, are we in the same way approaching the limits of human adaptability as technology is doing the same thing for AI and robots as Henry Ford and others did for horseless carriages? And the evidence is, yes, this is happening. Here's some data which shows that as technology is introduced, it does, to start off with, often create new jobs, but over time, there are a reverse. There are reverses. So if we look at the number of humans employed in weaving as technology entered that industry, it allowed more humans to create a variety of woven cloths much more quickly. So more people had more woven goods in the house, not just one set of clothes, but multiple sets of clothes, curtains, carpets, and so on. The number of weavers grew until automation improved so much that the weavers weren't needed hardly for any of these, and the number of weavers plummeted again. Similar stories can be told about bank tellers. When the holes in the wall, ATMs, automatic teller machines, were introduced, at first people thought, well, there will be fewer bank employees because Humans no longer need to see bank employees to get cash. But as the costs of looking after the customers declined, bank companies were able to open more bank branches. So there were more jobs for bank tellers for a while, but in recent times, technology has displaced more and more of the roles that human people do in banks. So the number of banking employees is shrinking again. That's a general pattern, and we are seeing it more and more. Economists indeed talk about two kinds of technological unemployment, both brought about by the increasing pace of technological improvement. There's frictional technological unemployment and structural technological unemployment. In the first case, people still can get jobs, but they often need to get new sets of skills, different from the skills they previously had in their old careers before these old careers were overtaken by automation. They may have to physically relocate, and often they may need to change their sense of identity. What kind of person are they? Well, that can be done, but it's psychological trauma. Callum Chase, who, by the way, was the person who coined the term the economic singularity, has talked about coming decades being a decade of the great churn, with more people needing to gain new skills or move around physically or change their sense of identity more quickly than ever before. But that's only a prelude to structural technological unemployment when, no matter how many times we try to change our skills or move around, we will be like the horses. There won't be anything left for us to do. We will be unemployable. And even if we get educated, it won't make a sufficient difference. And we will lead to more and more people being disengaged, potentially angry, potentially violent, potentially confrontational. That is the risk of the economic singularity. Final comment before I look at solutions. We can see some of these trends happening already, with some people doing very well, thank you, out of the rise of technology, but increasing numbers being left behind. This chart compares the fates of three large companies at different time periods. The three largest companies in Detroit, Motor City, in 1990, and the three largest companies in Silicon Valley in 2014. And it's a good comparison because in inflation-adjusted terms, the two sets of three companies had roughly the same revenues. However, the motor companies in Detroit had more than 1 million employees contributing to the creation of their wealth, whereas the companies in Silicon Valley had roughly a tenth as many people. And if you look beyond the current revenues to the market capitalization, the estimate of share price to the future values of these companies, the difference is even more striking. The market capitalization of these three companies in 1990 were 36 billion, whereas in Silicon Valley, it was more than 1 trillion. So that's 30 times the difference in market capitalization from a tenth as many employees. And since then, the valuations have gone even higher. This is part of a pattern of, we might say, winner takes all. We might say that the successful do very well indeed, and more people are unable to gain a direct access to that success. That's a foretaste of what the economic singularity might bring. So what are the possible responses? As I said, the book has, I think, 11 chapters in all, and I look at 6 possible responses in my opening chapter. Response 1, disbelief, denial, that this forecast I've made for what will happen to humans won't come about because humans are different from horses. We are special. We have special features which will mean we always can get employment. And we may have to reskill, we may have to move, and so forth. But bear in mind, these aren't just internal special features. These have to be features that are got economic value. And if we look at creativity, if we look at the display and understanding of emotions, if we look at common sense, Increasingly, AI is showing signs that it won't be long before it matches human performance and all of that. So I disbelieve in this disbelieve option. Response two, I call it accept. So maybe that doesn't quite capture the full idea. People will say, yes, it's true. There will be great disruptions and there will be fewer people who are the successful ones. But hey, or they say, they will be the winners in that. Too bad for the rest. It's not a thing you want to say out loud, but people do seem to believe it. They will think to themselves, they have got unique skills. They have done well in their career so far. They must have something special going for them. And in the disruptions ahead, they're likely to come up landing on their feet again. I think many people who have such thoughts, they may not say them out loud, they have such thoughts at the back of their minds, they will be unpleasantly surprised. They may find themselves being left behind too. They thought they had special skills, creativity skills, artistic skills, and it turns out that AIs can quickly surpass them. They may also, in many cases, have underestimated the extent to which luck has been involved in their previous career successes. And it turns out that what they thought had guaranteed their wealth so far is no longer the case. So in my chapter, I write at some length about the flaws of this accept point of view. A third point of view tries to resist this whole development altogether. It says that if nothing is done, these terrible outcomes, this increasing displacement of people from the workforce will happen, and they want to say, let's stop it. We might call them the Neo-Luddites, referring back to the people in the early days of the Industrial Revolution in the north of England who tried, for a while at least, to resist the spread of automation in the weaving industries. I don't think this is feasible. If we resist these new technologies, it means accepting lots of impoverishment. It means having to deal with human doctors who are often overworked and overstretched instead of having the benefits of AI systems or AI nurses that could work more reliably to provide us with better healthcare, better education, and so forth. I don't think this is credible. Option four is a bit more credible. Instead of trying to resist all of these new technologies beyond where they are today, it seeks to steer which of these new technologies we accelerate more quickly and which of them we slow down. And the goal is that these new AIs will not duplicate human skills, but they will develop things that humans can't do and don't want to do and leave the high value roles for humans. This is quite an attractive possibility, and I'm not going to be able in a few minutes to say why I think this isn't going to work. I'll just say for now that it also leaves many possibilities behind. There are many improvements which we could get from better AIs, which should lead us to my preferred solution, which will not take place if all we're doing is what is in option 4. Option 5 says, well, we're just going to have to realize it's going to be difficult in the future. Many people will realize they're not going to be part of the winners in this new society. We have to learn, the rest of us, to simplify our lifestyles, making do with less. So it'll still be quite a pleasant life, even though we don't have access to the best outputs that new generations of intelligent automation technologies could deliver. I see why this is attractive, but again, I think we can do better. Rather than sustainability with less, which is what options 3, 4, and 5 in various ways all consider, I think we can have sustainability with more. So my preferred option, which forms the bulk of my chapter in the book Future Visions, is enhance. By that I mean we will enhance with technology, not just the mechanisms to create products, but very importantly, also the mechanisms that we use in society for the sharing of the benefits of products. What I mean here is that we will enhance the mixed market, which is the mechanism which can distribute the goods, the benefits of technology to everyone. And at the same time, we will enhance the social contract. What do I mean by enhancing the mixed market? Indeed, what is the mixed market? Well, I in my chapter, refer to analysis by Jacob Hacker and Paul Pearson in their very interesting book, American Amnesia. It's quite a big book. There's lots of history in it. You may need quite a lot of patience to work your way all the way through it, but it is fascinating. It talks about the metaphor of the mixed market as being a bit like the combination of fingers and thumbs. This refers to Adam Smith's metaphor, the founder in many ways of modern economics, with his metaphor of the invisible hand, which is the operation of the free market without any coordination. But Hacker and Pearson, in their analysis, which I fully share, say that we need governments with their capacity to exercise authority, thumb-like capacity, that is necessary alongside what we might call the fingers, the enterprise, the energy of the market. To be more specific, we should encourage, provide many freedoms to entrepreneurs, allow entrepreneurs to decide which products to create, which prices to set, who to gain funding from, which people to partner with. That should not be mandated by the state. The state should not try to second guess all of these things. But there are failures that the market makes which government needs to protect against and stop. So that is the role of the thumbs, if you like. We wouldn't want to be all thumbs, but nor would we want to be all fingers. We need both. The thumbs are to guard against the rather routine failures that come out of free markets. Market failures because of what? Not paying enough attention to externalities, to the tendencies of markets to move towards monopolies or cartels, to the properties of markets to lead to information asymmetries so that people are no longer able to make intelligent choices. So there are market failures, and the governments therefore needed to guide and intervene from time to time in the operation of industry, breaking up large cartels, breaking up monopolies, setting standards to ensure that externalities are properly assessed. And often the companies that benefit from such a mixed market, they often try to override the power of the government. They put the government and the regulation systems under siege, but provided democracy and the market are sufficiently separated, this will work well. This was well understood many times in history, but as per the title of this particular book, there has been an amnesia, a forgetfulness, which has led people often to veer towards one of two fundamentalist extremes. A pro-market fundamentalism, which says that it's always markets that know best, and an anti-market fundamentalism, which says markets should not be tolerated or hardly tolerated at all. Whereas the middle way has a great track record in many parts of the world. However, due to narratives, false narratives that have been spread by people who wish to break free from the regulation of governments, we have forgotten many of these things. Another way to describe this is in the work of another pair of political scientists, economists, Darren Acemoglu and James Robinson, who have described what I've said using a different metaphor, that of the narrow corridor. There is a very careful balance that needs to be struck regarding the role of the state, regarding the role of the government. We can have society failing because the state is too weak, and we can have society failing because the state is too strong without countervailing social forces. Now, the basis for this analysis is that as we live together, societal well-being faces threats from powerful groups. We saw this from big tobacco, we've seen it from big oil, big armaments, bankers and financialists, big agrotech, big media want to maintain their own position. Big money, wealthy individuals, wealthy families trying to maintain their tax benefits. And we can say big crime, all sorts of mafias in various ways. Mafias literally, mafias more metaphorically. And we can't just say kumbaya and hope that all of these big forces will treat us kindly. That's not the way the world works. Nature is red in tooth and claw, and if we're not careful, society will be red in tooth and claw. We need to delegate power to central state and some power locally as well to control these potential powerful cancers. Society, which has big technology and big corporations, needs countervailing force of big state. But if the big state is allowed to work by itself to gain more power, that in turn will be the source of many failures. Just as the market can fail, politics can fail, the state can fail. So the countervailing force, as described by Acemoglu and Robinson in this book, and in their previous book, Why Nations Fail, society needs power to control the state via powerful independent media, powerful independent judiciary, powerful independent academia and researchers, and vitally free independent opposition parties that are credible alternative governments. This can be summed up by the separation of powers. And perhaps the two most important inventions of the last 500 years, they're not technological inventions by themselves, they are the mixed market and the separation of powers. If we get them wrong, none of the other things we hope to do can be solved. So that is the social framework that I believe will allow us to manage the risks of new technologies. It will allow us to channel the benefits of new technologies, not just to the powerful corporations, powerful groups, but to share it to everybody. And incidentally, Darren Acemoglu, with a new co-author this time, Simon Johnson, has recently come out with a new book that addresses some of the same issues with more focus on technological superstars. It's a fascinating chapter there about the person who created first the Suez Canal and then the Panama Canal. We might call him the Elon Musk of his day. And very thoughtful words, showing that if we're going to do this right, we need this balanced approach, a separation of power. No hero worshipping of technological giants, nor, on the other hand, too much power to the state. This balance is needed. And introducing the theme of technology brings me back then to the concluding remarks. If we get the narrow corridor right, if we get the mixed market right, then we can take advantage of the growing power of technology to allow all of this to stop working, because the robots will be doing all of the work necessary with some very minimal human oversight. So these technologies will provide more than enough for everyone, an abundance of clean energy at low cost, an abundance of nutritious food at low cost, an abundance of safe accommodation, an abundance of low-cost educational resources, and abundant healthcare, rejuvenation, biotech. And by the way, these last three, accommodation, education, and healthcare, are the three aspects of social goods that many people most complain about not being able to afford. Although many goods have come down in price in recent decades, there are in many regions of the world, including America, a growing inequality in access to good housing, good education, and good healthcare. But if we have the social contract working right, the steering of these benefits to everybody, that gap will shrink. We will have, with technology, an abundance of freedom of choice. We won't all be doing the same things. We will be able to explore lots of different bodily forms, lots of different social structures, lots of different lifestyle choices, and there will be so much that we can explore in inner space and in outer space, in games and sports and sciences. It can indeed be a sustainable superabundance for all. And what will be in the economy at that point? There will still be things that are relatively scarce, so there will still need to be some monetary aspect. And that will be paid for not by a UBI, a basic income, which won't give a good quality of life. It will give only a basic quality of life. But what I call a UGI, a universal generous income, which can easily be afforded by taking advantage of these remarkable efficiencies of new technology. So that is the vision. But many people, with some justification, fear being left behind. They can extrapolate what they are already seeing. They are experiencing lower qualities of life than their parents did, which is shocking to many, many people. And they fear things getting worse. So the solution there isn't just technology, it's narrative. It's championing the credibility of this narrative of sustainable superabundance with nobody left behind, just a few decades in the future, achieved via this triple solution of better technology, but also better society, this mixed market with the narrow corridor, and yes, better people in power because of taking advantage of these technologies to improve not just our health, but also our emotional state, our psychological state, and our relations with each other. So that's the gist of part of what I say in my chapter in the book, in Future Visions. And I encourage the rest of you to look at OmniFuturist.com, where you'll find more information. Thank you very much.